The following is a hockey podcast out of Vancouver and Surrey, British Columbia. It'll only consist of a lot of puck talk and even more BS, or in actual words, banter and satire. Enjoy, and as always, go Canucks go.
For the first time in Vancouver Canucks history, maybe in sports history, a team traded with themselves. Yes, the Vancouver Canucks in the last 14 hours have traded only with the Vancouver Canucks. What? Not really. But you understand what I'm saying, Trevor? You understand? Anyways, let's do this. Locked on Canucks.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, co-host of Locked On Canucks and also a Canucks writer since 2013, currently with the Daily Hive, Vancouver bitches. Before we dive into this episode of Locked On Canucks, we got to thank you for tuning into the show. You know why? Because it's your Canucks every damn day. We're part of that Locked On Podcast Network. And you know what you got to do if you haven't done so already is like and subscribe, baby. Do it. Do it now on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And, you know, Kyle and I, we got to make not quite the Dakota Joshua bucks, but the tens of dollars here on Locked On Canucks. We do that by shouting out our sponsors. Today, the episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download that Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Patrik Allvin, the dude, is making moves. Kyle had you covered yesterday with the Ilya Mikheyev trade to the Chicago Blackhawks. Could have been the San Jose Sharks, but apparently this dude wants to be in the middle of the USA as opposed to California. But hey, figure that one out. And what have they done since then? They have re-signed it, Dakota Joshua, okay? Bringing back one of the cultural pillars on this team in terms of the physicality that he brought. Dakota Joshua signing a 4-year deal worth $3.25 million. So Kyle and I will give our thoughts on the deal. I got to talk a bit more about the Mikheyev trade, the Bluger signing. Things are coming together here for your Vancouver Canucks. And we also got to touch on what's next for the boys in blue and green.
Holy.
Speaking of blue and green, let me introduce my co-host. He's got the blue on his shirt. He's got the green in his lungs. Kyle Bowden, how you doing, brother?
Holy, there you go, man. How'd you do that, man? Trevor on a roll, man. Trevor swearing, Trevor just laying it down the line. Hey, Dakota Joshua is here for, quite a long time, and he's way underpaid, but way underpaid to the extent in which Canucks fans across the globe thought he was getting 4 or 3.95. But here he is, not even testing that. You know what I'm saying? Not even going there, because he, like Teddy Bluger, these guys want to remain in Vancouver. That's a beautiful thing. You want to talk about culture? That means something. It's cool to be a Vancouver Canuck again. Patrik Allvin, Jim Rutherford, Rick Tocchet, and the players, man, oh man, applause to that. And we only made the second round of Game 7. And again, it's cool. Like, we have to break down how this all happened so quick, because it's not a guarantee that the Canucks are going to always be good. But here are these players just feeling as if they just joined the San Antonio Spurs of like the early 2000s. It's like, oh, we got to stick around for this. This is going to be crazy. That has a lot to do with the crowd. We'll get into that a bit later. Again, Mikheyev gets traded. Joshua gets signed. Everything's happening so quick. Beggsy, on a scale of 1 to 10, like, how good did Allvin do here? Because I feel as if he did 50. I think he did 50, man. Break it all down.
Yeah, if you're putting all the new moves in a nutshell on a scale of 1 to 10, let's give it like an 8.5. And the only reason I guess I'm docking the guy points.
Here, man.
Oh, you're
Dude,
okay.
Are you serious? No, this guy, how did he trade Ilya Mikheyev for a 2027 second round pick? That's like 3 drafts from now, 4 drafts from now. Well, what's the draft? Who cares? Who cares? That was mission impossible. This guy had 1 goal in 60 games. He's coming off ACL surgery. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what he did to do that, but for him to do that and then find a way to just get Joshua signed, like one of those guys who's a cultural pillar, who plays physical. Again, you can't just do this to this core again and take all the big pieces out, So what he did in the span of 24 hours, I feel as if that's A+. Nobody saw that coming, and he did a superb job. That could have been a 2025 pick. That could have been a 2026 pick. Picks that you could use in immediate trades. like trades next year to improve your team. Like, you don't want to do that with Miller at 30, 31. You know what I'm saying? Like, you need those closer picks. So, they're more appealing to teams who would potentially give us some better players at the deadline and whatnot. He gave up a 2027 second round pick to get off Mikheyev. This kid's not even born yet. He's in his dad's ball sack. That's all we gave up.
And I like how I give Allvin an 8.5 out of 10. You're like, what do you mean? Give him an 8.5 out of 10?
10 out of 10.
You? Yeah, okay, look, here's the thing, right? You got to give. Look, I think Patrik Allvin and Jim Rutherford, they've done a bang up job since coming in here, and the bar was obviously really low with the previous management team. But in terms of docking points, if you want me to go negative, I shouldn't be doing that at a time like this. But I'll go negative.
Do it, asshole.
The fact that they signed Mikheyev to that contract in the first place, they got to wear some blame for that.
Okay.
Because you attach an asset, call what you want. It is still a second round pick, even though it's in 2027, and thankfully it is. It makes the trade a whole lot easier to stomach. And I got to be honest with the people. If you're an everydayer, you know it. But we talked about it a few shows ago when we said the Mikheyev trade could change everything. And you know what? We're well on our way to seeing that happen. So shout out to Mikheyev. But I did say at the end of that episode that I probably would not pull the trigger on trading Ilya Mikheyev for a second round pick, or including a second round pick to get off of his contract. But the fact that they got a fourth in return, the fact that it's a 2027 second round pick makes the trade a whole lot easier to stomach. But I mean, the fact that they even got into that position where they had to trade Mikheyev because they signed him to a contract they never should have signed.
Oh my God, Debbie Downer over here.
Yeah, that's why I'm not giving him a 10 out of 10, man. Unbelievable.
No, you're unbelievable. You keep holding on to the past, bro. You keep holding on to the past. This team just traded Ilya Mikheyev for Dakota Joshua, and they did it by giving up a 2027 second round pick, bro. Like, if they made this trade, right, trading Ilya Mikheyev and a 2025 second round pick to keep Dakota Joshua, I feel as if 80% of the fan base would be like, okay, it's a tough pill to swallow, giving up a 2025 second round pick, but for Dakota Joshua, you got to do it because, bro, there's a player here. There's a player here. Like, his base is alien-like. I'm not saying he's going to be like a 180-point player, 60-point player, but his base is unorthodox, and it adds to that big boy hockey that Rick Tocchet wants to play. And it adds to what you want in the playoffs. So, again, Trevor, you got to let go of the effing past, bro. You dark mother. Come on, man. You're the darkest guy on the program,
Unbelievable. Man. You're such a fanboy, bro. I can't believe you give me a hard time for giving the trade an 8.5 out of 10. Damn, if I got 8.5 out of 10 on a test.
Masterclass. This is a masterclass. Chicago could have hung up the phone and they could have been like, don't call us back until you're giving us a 2025 second round pick. And maybe they would have considered it.
And again, that's why Allvin deserves credit, right? Because you look at how many draft picks Chicago has. Like, what does another 2025 second round pick do for them? It doesn't matter. Spread out the arsenal, just like Vancouver is short on draft picks. So instead of trading away all their draft picks in 1 year, they're trading away draft picks 3 years down the line. And, Chicago, they got all these draft picks stocked up in this draft and the next draft. So they could use another second round pick in 2027. So the other thing I'm going to mention is the Canucks to retain salary in a deal. Not a ton, right? It's a very small amount under the cap hit, but they didn't get out of that deal without having to retain salary. So they retained some salary. They attached a second rounder. I mean, again, the fact that he was able to move off of $4 million in Mikheyev salary for the next 2 seasons is huge. And it basically allowed them to sign Dakota Joshua, right? Like you alluded to off the top, the Canucks just traded with themselves. The deal is Ilya Mikheyev, a 2027 second round pick, rights to Sam Lafferty for a 2027 fourth round pick and Dakota Joshua. And I think we'll talk more about Dakota Joshua on the other side because I feel like I've done most of the first segment critiquing the trade here. But
okay,
again,
okay. So can we again though, like you critique the trade? I understand why, because you're coming from the point of view where you can't let go of the past. Like from the jump, Trevor Beggs you were so alarmed, as was I, with the signing in the first place, right? It was so bad. It was so bad when, again, Allvin signed Mikheyev that it gave us that icky gym betting feeling. Do you remember that? I remember we dropped a morning practice episode about this, and we were just so choked. Like, yo, is this happening again? We just got this GM. His first signee on July 1st is Ilya Mikheyev for just under $5 million. That, like, it was 10 out of 10 bad, and it ended up being, I wouldn't say 10 out of 10 bad overall, but it was an overall fail.
Yeah, was not a good trade at the time, or signing at the time, I should say, and we knew that. But again, kudos to Allvin again. I give the trade an 8.5 out of 10. Pretty damn good. Good on Allvin for getting out of Mikheyev. Only retaining a bit of salary, had to attach some assets. That's the price of doing business. But he managed to get it done, and because of that, Dakota Joshua and Teddy Bluger returning to the Vancouver Canucks.
Mhm.
The other thing I got to say too is that even though some salary was retained, right? I believe it's $712,500 for the next 2
Oh,
seasons.
wait.
So Teddy Bluger signs out of 1.8 million AAV. I believe on the open market he probably could have gotten around 2.5. He played at a middle of the road third line center value by the end of the season. We know in this market that he was providing some second line center value at some point as well. So you're basically paying this guy to be your fourth line center, even though he can be a third line center, and I think he's proven that already. Dakota Joshua, I said it before. If he hit the open market, I believe he would have gotten 4 million plus, right? And even when I was doing contract projections here on Locked On Canucks, I was projecting Bluger getting close to market value in that 2.2, 2.3 range. I was projecting Dakota Joshua maybe taking a bit of a haircut to stay in Vancouver, but still around that 3.75 because, when I build all those cap projections, I don't want to be assuming these guys are going to take decent haircuts, but both of them did. Both of them did, Kyle. So even the fact that the Canucks retain, 700K plus salary on Mikheyev, they still got guys in Dakota Joshua and Teddy Bluger who I believe could have gotten 700,000 more each on the open market. So still with all these moves made, I think the Canucks are in a better cap situation overall.
Yeah.
And again, you get out from Ilya Mikheyev, which is huge. So on the other side, there's two things I want to talk about. The Dakota Joshua signing in general. You heard me tease it there. I mean, it's a pretty damn good signing. Why do I think that's the case? And what is the next level for Joshua? Let's get to that on the other side. And let's also talk about what's next for these Vancouver Canucks, because we are, it's a few hours, but we are hours away from the start of NHL free agency. And, maybe I'm in a negative mood state. Should the Canucks be scared? Should Canucks fans be scared of July 1st?
Holding on to the past.
In this market. Hey, there's trauma in this market, man.
Yep.
Let's get to all that and more on the other side after we shout out our friends over at Game Time. All right, you know the deal, okay? Game Time, they got your back. Because Nicole at Game Time's got my back. Always sending me those emails, teasing me with concerts and events this week in my area. And you know what Nicole wants me to buy right now? Is MLB tickets, okay? Because Game Time is the authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Pricing on the Game Time app, you know what? They actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and that lowest price guarantee, baby. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. And I'm not a big MLB guy, but I got that West Coast bias. So that when the Blue Jays are in town, I'm going for the Mariners over the BJs, okay? I mean, everyone loves a good BJ except when the B starts with blue and the J starts with J. And then it's not so good, That's just the way it goes. But whether you're buying tickets for Mariners or something else, I'm a big BC Lions guy. Go Lions, go. So let's kick the crap out of the Elks tonight. You can get those tickets on Game Time as well. When you go search for tickets on Game Time, you can find last-minute deals, flash deals, zone deals, all-in pricing, seat views, and that lowest price guarantee. So go get it done. Download that Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
People, we moving and we grooving on this episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Kyle Bowen. That right there is Trevor Beggs, who's still stuck in 2019 or 2022 or whatever the year was when we signed Ilya Mikheyev. Man, oh man, this guy gives Patrik Allvin an 8.5 out of 10 for absolute larceny, like doing the impossible, in my opinion, okay? This guy's upset or doesn't give Allvin the perfect rating because of a 2027 second-round pick. Bro, that pick doesn't even have a grandfather yet. That's how young that pick is, okay? Relax, man. Go for a walk, bro.
Yeah, I haven't gone for a walk today. Maybe that's
there you
it.
Go.
But,
Boom,
I'm just saying, man. You got your head full of that West Coast bias. Sometimes you got to look at things rationally. Okay, Patrik Allvin isn't the second coming of Jesus because of this deal. I mean, he did some great work. Let's not kid ourselves. But he still had to attach an asset to get rid of a guy who should never sign in the first place. So that's what I'm talking.
Yeah, you keep holding on to that. How about what happens next? What did he do about it? accountability, Trevor. Read some
No,
Deepak Chopra.
I agree. I agree.
One
That's
love
a
to the
great
Don't Does Art Lab for giving us a space to have this conversation. Straight up, they just look after that West Coast bias, and somebody's got to have that on the program, right? To keep this friendship in order. Where's your loyalty at, Trevor Beggs? Where's the Canucks loyalty with Dakota Joshua? It's 4 years long. Where's Dakota Joshua's loyalty with the Vancouver Canucks? It's also 4 years long. Supposedly, this guy's taking a lot less money to stick around. And if that's the case, a big reason why is because he plays for the most loyal fans in the NHL. Okay, I think a big reason why Nikita Zadorov wants to take a discount and Teddy Bluger and Dakota Joshua are doing the same is because of the crowd and the noise. Okay, I watched a lot of NHL hockey this spring, and man, oh man, up until the Stanley Cup Finals, no crowd was louder than Rogers Arena. Rogers Arena was a spectacle. That's the loudest I feel like that's the loudest we've ever been outside of the Stanley Cup Finals. Okay, for real. In previous eras of the Canucks, when we were making the first and second round, I don't know if it was that loud. And my hearing's been getting worse over the years. That crowd put on a show. Vancouver put on a show for 2 rounds, and it was enough to make, again, Vancouver cool again. And again, Trevor, round 2, game 7, that's all. That's all. Looked pretty bad in game 6 and 7, but the Canucks, who have been so bad for the past decade, are apparently a place you got to be. It's pretty surprising.
Yeah, Vancouver's the place to be again, and Dakota Joshua was a big part of that, right? And he kind of got the party started for Vancouver in the playoffs with a fantastic performance in Game 1 against the Nashville Predators. And the guy had a what was it? A goal and 2 assists, 2 goals and assists. I can't even remember now. It was 2 goals and 1 assist in Game 1 against the Nashville Predators. And the thing about Dakota Joshua, and I do think he can provide some value on this contract, which is why I'm pretty happy to see the number closer to 3 than it is to 4. Again, at $3.25 million per season. I think we're all penciling him back in on that third line because that's what makes sense, right? You're going to hopefully find a guy in free agency who can play on the top line with Pettersson. Ideally, you find another guy, but if it's Pius Suter back with Miller and Besser, that works. And that line was proven to work. I mean, you'd like a better finisher, but that line has shown that it can have some success, and Suter can provide some value on that cap hit. But here's the thing. I look at Dakota Joshua, and I don't think he's necessarily just a third-line player. I think there's a chance that Dakota Joshua could move up the lineup here in Vancouver throughout the length of this contract. Again, he's great on the third line. He's got chemistry with Garland. If Bluger slots back on that line, that's going to work. But I think there's a chance that Dakota Joshua, because he's got the trust of Rick Tocchet now. He's seen that increased role. He's played at all situations. I think Rick Tocchet loves Dakota Joshua, and I could see Dakota Joshua maybe playing with Miller and Besser a little bit, maybe playing on that top line with Pettersson or second line with Pettersson. I think Joshua could be at his peak a complementary piece in the top 6 alongside a couple of bona fide top 6 wingers. And maybe it is like I want to get a little dreamy here, a little Gensel, Pettersson, Joshua. He's a guy who's got flexibility. I think he can play all around your lineup. He's going to provide that physical edge. And don't be surprised next year if he scores less goals, right? Because he had 22 goals on 93 shots, right? That's the elephant in the room. And I'm talking about combined playoffs and regular season there. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a dip in his scoring next year. But one of the good things about Joshua is a lot of his shots come from right in front of the net, right in the crease, right in the greasy areas, the high danger areas. So there's a ton to like about Joshua. Like you've asked me probably a few times on the show, is there another level to Joshua's game? And what have I said every time? I said, hell yeah.
Yeah, you have. And, everyone knows about the relationship that Rick Tocchet has with Joshua, okay? A firm believer, a big-time believer. Before anyone thought that Dakota Joshua was a 20-goal scorer, heck, maybe even before Dakota Joshua knew that he was a 20-goal scorer in the NHL, there was Rick Tocchet, right? Saying he was. And I think he said that to Trevor Beggs. And Trevor Beggs thought he was high on mushrooms. He thought he was dreaming. You thought you were sleeping, bro. One of those long nights. But it was actually Rick Tocchet saying that. Now, I heard Dakota Joshua's agent talk on Donnie and Dally. Go check that out, okay? Again, the best podcast in the world. And they were the agent, was talking about how the other dude, what's his name? Yuri Safalovsky? What's his name?
You're not talking about Slav. You're talking about the new coach, or we're talking about Yuri?
Yeah, talking about
Yogi Svechkovsky.
Okay.
You want to say Yuri Slavkovsky? Oh, wow.
I was talking about the first overall pick from a couple years ago. Okay, no. Yogi Stefanovsky, right? You know what I'm
Sure.
saying? Okay, that dude, right?
Svechkovsky. Yeah.
I'm gonna get better at it. Okay, Trevor.
Okay.
I'm learning. Okay, 31 and a half years old. Okay. Okay, so the agent of Dakota Joshua was talking about the new assistant coach who's been a skill guy or a skill trainee for the Canucks over the past years, has talked about again that relationship, like he's close with Joshua. And then you see some of the, the plays that Joshua made this year, and you can see glimpses of a good PKer, yes, a good skater, a good player, but an even better offensive player. And I'll go back to the main part again, the physical aspect. Like there's a physical aspect to his game that's different. Like he hits everything. He hits everything. He wants to be in the face of adversity, or not adversity, but he wants to be in the face of the intensity. Okay, right in the face of it. If it's the playoffs, he's there in each scrum. I got to bring up this comparison, and it's kind of dumb because this other guy is really good. But I wonder if Dakota Joshua, with more NHL games, because he just got here, and the belief within the system and being surrounded by good players, I wonder if there's a little bit of Sam Bennett in Dakota Joshua.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, everyone wants the next Sam Bennett on their team, right? And yeah, I mean,
Dakota Joshua may be too nice. He may be too nice to be Sam Bennett, because Sam Bennett does have that "I'm gonna kill you because I want to win the game" energy. I don't know if Dakota Joshua is willing to like murder somebody on the ice to get that advantage, but there's X factor there with a guy like that.
yeah. And again, I still think there's a better, Joshua could bring more consistency to his game overall. And maybe a bit more of a mean streak as well. He's a heavy hitter, but he could be more involved, like you said, like a Sam Bennett is. And those guys, what do? They help you win cups, Kyle. They help you win Stanley Cups. Let's wrap up the show on the other side with a few comments, and let's talk about what's next for the Vancouver Canucks here. And we'll talk a bit about the cap space they got left over. All that coming up to wrap up the show on the other side here on Locked On Canucks, your Canucks every day.
People, we back doing this. Talking about your Canucks, Ilya Mikheyev, Dakota Joshua, and Trevor's fascination with the 2027 second round pick that we gave up. Like, I don't know who you've been scouting at the White Rock Arena, okay? I know you've been at Centennial Arena. Maybe you see some 14-year-old that's like killing it, and you're like, dude, we need to hold on to these second round picks. But man, oh man, Beggsy unwilling to give Patrik Allvin the obvious 10 out of 10 with what he did with Mikheyev, and that's, again, trade Ilya Mikheyev for Dakota Joshua. Okay, well, one more note on Joshua before we get to the comments. The physicality, I mentioned it many times. I've talked about the culture too. Again, Rick Tocchet is there. He wants that big boy hockey. He wants that in-your-face style of game. He doesn't want a team that's intimidated of anything, okay? And there's no way, again, that this team was going to go into next season without one of Nikita Zadorov or Dakota Joshua. So if you want to be about it and you want your team to play like that, it's one thing to coach it, but it's a lot easier and more efficient if you know you have it in guys based on what they've done in your system and you keep them around. Because that line of work, being one of those mother effers, right, who's willing to do that, who's willing to defend his teammates, right? Why did he break his hand? Because he fought somebody who hit Connor Garland with a minute left in the game in Chicago. Ironically, I know it was a, quote unquote a little bit of a dumb move, but he was back before the playoffs. So what? So what? He's one of those. He's a bad mother effer, and we kept him around. So the Canucks, culturally speaking, are creating an identity as well. And Dakota Joshua, it sounds crazy to say this, but he adds to that identity. Like whether he be a third liner or a second liner, I think he's a big piece to what the Canucks are trying to build.
Yeah, again, he's fit into this team seamlessly and come a long ways from just kind of looking like a run-of-the-mill fourth liner when he first started in Vancouver. And granted, that was pretty early in his NHL career here. But man, oh man, the growth in this game over the past 2 years, I'm incredibly curious to see the next level for Dakota Joshua. And, you know, I've read it out there, and it's kind of the elephant in the room as well. Like, there's potentially some regression risk, and the fact this guy hasn't played a lot of NHL games, but I believe in the player. I believe in the work that he's put in Vancouver. The fact that he's shown he can be not just a good penalty killer, but a good defensive player as well. Dakota Joshua just brings a lot to the table. And again, at this deal, you're paying him to be a run-of-the-mill third liner. I think he could be a top-end third liner, or maybe even a guy who's a complimentary piece in your top six. Now, when I look at the Canucks cap situation now and seeing a few numbers passed around, but from the numbers that I was kind of crunching on the cap sheet before this episode, Kyle, it looks like the Canucks to me have $18.5 million in cap space left.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you want to just wrap it up in 10 seconds, what they could do and call it a day with their offseason is theoretically they could sign Gensel, Zadorov, and Myers for $18.5 million and call it a day and be ready to go for next season. I am including Shilovs as part of that as well, signing a deal. Although some news broke today as well, the Canucks are potentially interested in a reunion with Casey DeSmith. Kyle, what do you think? Is that noise?
Wow.
Is there something to it? And what are your thoughts on that?
All over the place. I don't think the Canucks, knowing what Shilovs did in the playoffs, are in a position to put Casey DeSmith's return at the top of their acquisition list here. Like they need to
Yeah.
keep Zadorov or go after Gensel. Like it's one or the other, right? It's like I feel as if I get the theory, I get the angle that they want to take if they are concerned about Demko's ability to play a lot of games, right? Like his fragileness, if that's a word, if they're worried about that, I understand the whole DeSmith thing, but have some faith in Archers and get some other things done first before you go down that more, what's the word? That safe approach, right? Because right now it's not, we ain't playing it safe, man. Joshua Zadorov, you get Zadorov done too. We ain't playing it safe. Get Gensel, we ain't playing it safe. Well, what's the J. Cole quote? I think he probably stole it from somebody else. It was like, if you're scared to take a chance, how the F you gonna get rich? AKA be decked out in silver. What? Silver? Stanley Cup. Okay, you get what I'm trying to say? Anyways, I don't really care about Casey DeSmith coming back right now.
Yeah, neither do I. And again, like you said, Kyle, I don't think it should be a priority for this team. And, even if you do think the Canucks can get Gensel, Zadorov, and Myers, if Myers is even what you want, like I start to wonder too if,
No.
maybe there's a better option out there than Tyler Myers. But anyways,
why don't we replace Brendan Dillon with Tyler Myers? Is it because it's a righty-lefty thing? Like one of
yeah,
those
that would
things?
be that would be a righty lefty thing more than
Yeah.
anything else.
Yeah.
But again, let's just theorize that Gensel gets 9.5, let's say 10 even.
Whoa.
The Canada tax.
Whoa.
Zadorov at 5, and then Myers at 3, and then you got 500.
Okay. Let's stop talking about Zadorov
Something
making
like
5.
that.
I think your mic cut out a bit there, but let's stop talking about Nikita Zadorov getting 5. Like, what if he wants to stick around? Like, I can see Allvin be like, yo, take 4.5 over 5. Like, again, everyone keeps talking about like everyone getting paid so much and the cap going up and all that jazz. Yo, the cap's going up. I get it. But guys like Gensel get paid. Like the bidding war should, like, I'm not completely convinced that 15 teams are lining up for Nikita Zadorov to give him $5+ million. Maybe a couple, maybe Columbus, right? Maybe Columbus, maybe Nashville. You know what I'm saying? But if he doesn't even want to go to those two places, and then the rest of the competitive teams are like, yo, 4.75, 4.85. Look at what Joshua just got. These contracts keep coming in, and they're a lot less than what we originally project.
Yeah, and I think the reason is Allvin and Rutherford are making it happen, man. They're getting guys to take discounts. And again, like you said, it's the secondary players who your top of the line of players are going to get paid because 31 other teams in the league want them. But there is a budget at the end of the day. And, again, I think it's really promising for the Canucks and, keeping as many of these guys together as possible that, almost got to the conference finals last year to take discounts. Blueger just took a discount of about $750, let's call it. I'm going to call it, $750, $700. Dakota Joshua, I think, took a discount of about $750. Ken Zadorov took a discount of about $750 from that 5-ish range down to that 4.5 range. I'm starting to think it's possible. And in fact, I'm believing it's going to happen at this point.
Dude, how cool is Rick Tocchet for this to be happening? Like, what's he doing in there? We kept joking about Amsterdam Cafe. Bro, what if they got like a built-in one there at Rogers Arena, dude? I'm telling you, man. Anyways, let's get to the comments before we get out of here. Mark Hedlund, one of the better commenters on the program, right? Saying everyone but Pettersson took a team-friendly deal. The comment makes a lot of sense now. Like, you can give off that energy, but the fact that Pettersson stuck around for 8 years, signed for 8 years at that amount, based on where I project Pettersson to be ASAP, that team's that contract, I'm sorry, is going to be like pretty damn cheap. Okay, the NHL is on the rise. It's on the rise. The money gonna keep going up, and the best of Pettersson is gonna give us way more than 11.6 over 8. Like, 3 years from now, if you're praying for all the right things and you get all the right things and you don't litter, that contract's going to be cheap, quote unquote.
Yeah, I agree with Pedersen. I think people are thinking too much about the last couple months since he signed that deal, ironically, which hasn't helped his case. But, over the long run, over his track record, that deal came in probably a bit below market value. I think there's a good argument that if Pedersen went to market, he would have gotten 12 and a half, maybe even 13.
Whoa.
Honestly, like, again, if you project where the cap is going, what Pedersen had done to this point in his career, he's been one of the best players in the NHL over the past 5 seasons. So I do think, again, I wouldn't call it necessarily a steal of a contract or a team-friendly deal, but he did take a bit of a haircut for sure.
Whoa. Damn, we're going to get hated on for that. More specific question. Again, I'll stick around for like 2 or 3 more minutes. Mr. Whale asking, I'm scared of Dak's shooting / scoring percentage. You did mention this 10 minutes ago. I want to turn this into a question, okay? Like, what specifically, outside of, being consistent, is going to allow Joshua to not regress? Like, what does he have to improve on? Is it as simple as, like, having a better offseason, which he didn't have last year, getting, favorable line mates? Like, how does he get better? How does he maintain, being a 20-goal scorer and 18-goal scorer with this contract?
To be honest with you, I think to an extent regression is inevitable.
Whoa,
Guys on their career just don't shoot at 20%. They don't. It doesn't happen. So like I do expect his shooting percentage to regress. I do think that's an inevitability. But what I think he can do is bring more consistency. Like, I look at the playoffs, and like I'm even looking at his game log in front of me right now for the playoffs. Dakota Joshua had 3 really good games in the playoffs, and the rest of them were mediocre to bad. I know he threw the body a lot and he led the league in hits in the Stanley Cup final, but you got to do more than that, right? If all you're doing is hitting, you're no better than like a Ryan Lomberg who's in and out of the lineup for the Florida Panthers. You got to bring more than just hitting to the table, especially when it comes to the Stanley Cup playoffs. So again, just getting in hard on the forecheck, being smart defensively, finding your teammates. Like, look, Dakota Joshua spent most of his season playing with Connor Garland, who's an extremely talented player. Just do a good job of continuing to find your teammates, be in good position, and bring more than just the hits, especially come playoff time.
I think the easiest answer for him to maintain that level of output with the shooting percentage going down is having him on the power play in front of the net. Now, that's a little insane to say based on some of the work Besser was doing in front of the net on, again, a pretty shitty power play. So it's not saying much, but if there's a switch there and there's some more movement, like Besser's more in the bumper, Joshua in front of the net could definitely be something. Okay. For real.
Right.
Go ahead. You're going to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say, I think if Josh was on the power play, he's a second unit guy. I think what they're going to do on July 1st, if it's not Gensel, they're going to find someone else to fill the void there. And that's kind of what I want to talk about tomorrow, unless, some other news breaks, is maybe let's talk about a trade or two tomorrow. And I have one team in mind and one trade scenario in my mind in terms of where the Canucks can pivot on the trade market if Jake Gensel doesn't come to the Vancouver Canucks. And Kyle, you might slap me tomorrow. And I see people in the comments telling you to slap me tomorrow. You might actually slap me when I suggest a potential trade that the Canucks could make if they are going to lose out on Jake Gensel. But we'll save that for tomorrow. For now, shout out to the everydayers, occasional listeners, first-time listeners, new subscribers, and those of you who join us on the live show on YouTube. Whatever you're listening, wherever you're listening, we appreciate the heck out of you, all right? Draft is tomorrow, trade talk tomorrow, maybe a couple late-round pick talk tomorrow, all be coming up here at Locked On Canucks, your Canucks every day. Kyle, sign us out, buddy.
I'll sign you out with 2 things, okay? Joshua, yeah, he bleeds blue and green. One love to you. There's another guy saying that we should sign Jeff Skinner. Not going to happen, okay? Ray Ferraro said, don't do it. Don't do it. So I'm going to listen to him, okay? Kyle Bound, Trevor Beggs, Locked On Canucks. Hit the like button, subscribe, and go Canucks go, man. The Canucks, your Canucks, they're cool again.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network,